Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
We have new information in a dog attack that injured 2 people in South Lubbock last spring.
As KCBD News Channel 11's Madeline Hall reports, they could sue both the city of Lubbock and the Lubbock Police Department.
She joins us with a look at the petition now before the court. Madeline?
Karen and Abner, Roy Huang and Joy Wong filed what's called a petition to investigate claims with the 72nd District Court. They're seeking testimony and documents that could lead to a lawsuit in the future. The filing centers around an attack by a Lubbock police canine on April 12th. Police confirmed that the canine escaped his handler's yard and attacked Huang and Wong near 108th and Englewood. The two claim they were on a walk with their young children when the dog attacked them unprovoked. Police told us that day that one of them was seriously injured, though both say they went to UMC for emergency treatment. Their filing also claims both Huang and Wong's injuries have affected their ability to work and to parent, and that the attack caused symptoms related to trauma exposure in their kids. Lubbock police placed the canine's handler, identified in the court documents as Officer James Simsick, on leave the day of the incident. The department then announced a month later that he received an unpaid suspension from duty and was reassigned within the force. Now again, this filing in the 72nd District Court is just an attempt to gather evidence and testimony in order to help narrow down who Huang and Wong might sue and on what grounds. Potential parties include Officer Simsick, Police Chief Seth Herman, the City of Lubbock, and any other people who may be implicated by the investigation. The filing specifies that Huang and Wong's legal team wants a clear picture of how the canine was contained and how it may have escaped. If a lawsuit is filed, the claims could be negligence, failure to supervise and/or train, maintaining indifferent policies and practices, or other causes of action yet to be revealed. We reached out to the Lubbock Police Department for comment and were referred to City Legal. The city told us that it cannot comment on pending litigation. The canine was shot and killed by a witness during the attack. Judge John Grace presides over the 72nd District Court. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Madeline.